Hey guys, this is going to be my first tutorial. I'm going to walk you guys through a simplistic rain particle system that has rain falling from the sky and then tiny splashes on the floor. Um, we're going to not go through the puddles or the splash rings in this tutorial because they're a bit more complicated and they would take more time. So we're just going to focus on the particle systems. So the first thing we need to do is open up a new Unreal project. I'm using the third person example. Third person is always just my go-to personally for testing things. I like it quite a lot. So in our content folder, right click and we'll make a new folder. Tutorial content. Name it whatever you want. I'm going to go in, I'm going to make another new folder. I'm going to call this rain underscore tutorials. Right, now the first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need a material for our particle system to use. So we'll right click and we'll make a new material. I'm going to call this rainfall underscore m. Underscore m is for material. It's just a naming convention. It makes things easier to find. Keeps your searches neat and tidy. So this is our final material. This is what controls the output. These pins here receive data from other nodes that you build. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change this because we don't want a regular material. So in the left hand side, change the blend mode to translucent, and we're going to change the shading model to unlit. Now you'll notice that a lot of these pins have turned off. The background here has changed, and this is now just a black circle with no lighting, no reflection. That's fine, that's exactly what we wanted, so we don't have to worry about that. Now, we're going to be using a particle system, so if we right click into the material area and we type in particle color, you'll get this node. This allows us to control the color through RGB in our particle system, and the alpha for opacity. So what we need to do first is we need to consider the shape that we need. Now we've got a circle here because we're displaying it as a sphere. If we change this to a square, we just get a square because it's using default UV space, which is 1 and 1. We don't want an entire square, we need something that we can naturally make a little bit more rain-like, so we're going to use a circle. Easiest way to do this is with a radial gradient exponential. What this does is it creates a circular gradient. So if we right click it and start previewing it, you can see this gradient of white out into black in a circle. This is exactly what we need. So if we start previewing this, now to use this, what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to multiply this shape by the alpha here. So if we hold M on the keyboard and left click rather, you get a multiply. So let's just plug the radial gradient into the B, the alpha into the A, and then the final pin into the opacity on the material, and now you see we get this. Instead of getting just a solid, this is shown on the square, the plane. So rather than just getting solid black, we now have this gradient. But we're going to need to also change the colors of things. So hold M and click again for another multiply. Use the radial gradient in the B again. Take the top white pin from particle color, which is a combination of the other 4 channels, into A on the multiply, and plug this into the emissive color. Now it's white. This is fine. This is what we want. This now tells us that we can use this and we can change these colors as we want inside the particle system. So this is all we need to do for this material. This is our rain material. So apply and save, and then we will close that down. Now in our content folder, right click, particle system, rainfall underscore P. If we open this up, we get the cascade editor, which is the particle systems in Unreal. These look quite daunting. There is a lot of things to look at. Now, it is quite complicated when you start out, but it's actually really easy to learn, and I'm going to walk through everything that we need to do. So here we have the viewport, and you can see these little crosshairs that are all spraying out of the ground. This is where our emitter is. This is what's emitting these particles, and these are the default particles. Now we don't want these, so here in the particle emitter, if we click on required, you can see we have the material. Let's find our rainfall. Rainfall M. Now it should start spraying the little dots that we created. There we go. That's what we want. Now we're going to need quite a lot of rain, and we don't want to use the default rendering. By default, particles use the CPU. If you put too many in, it's going to lag. You're going to affect performance. So what we need to do is we need to tell these particles to render on the GPU instead. So if we right click and go to type data, you can get GPU sprites. Once it says GPU sprites here, you know that you've got GPU sprites. You'll get a warning about the system having no bounding box. Up here, next to bounds, you can click the little arrow and set fixed bounds. That will go away, and this means now that these will render whether or not the player is looking directly at the emitter. If the emitter's not on screen in a CPU particle system, they won't render. So now that we know that we can use a lot more, we can bump the spawn up. So we're going to go with 7.5 thousand, which is a lot of particles. Look at all those particles. Woohoo! Right. They're not living very long. So we're going to change these to 5. Now, I've been using Unreal already today, so a lot of this is already open. When you open up Lifetime, you're just going to get this on the left-hand side. Okay, so this little arrow opens up the next level. That will be closed. And then you want to go into the distribution as well, and then you'll get minimum and maximum. We want the minimum and maximum life to just be 5, so they're always going to last for the same amount of time. Every single piece of rain is lasting for the same amount of time. And we're doing that because we don't want random pieces of rain to just delete themselves mid-fall. We want them to hit the floor when they die. So we can make sure that their time is long enough for them to come and collide with an object first. So we're going to add 5 seconds. It's quite a lot of time, but they'll be dead before they reach there. That sounds really evil. They're going to be dead. Right, we're going to change the initial size of these. Because right now they're a bit big. 25 on every coordinate. We don't want this. So what we're going to do is we're going to make them smaller, and then just have this a little bit bigger so that they're a little bit fatter. And then we want 3 minus 10 on this one. There we go. Now you can, so 3 10 on max, 3 minus 10 on minimum, and now we get these really nice spray, almost snow-like. I'll be doing snow at another point though, because we're going to make it look prettier than just that for snow. Right, so initial velocity, they're flying in the wrong direction. These things are going up. We don't want them to go up. So the initial velocity, we're going to go 0, 0, and then 0, because we don't want them to go up. And you notice that they're just flying about everywhere. Because right, 0, 0, and minus 500. Whee! Okay, now minus 500 on the Z means that they're going to get flung down. That's exactly what we want. We want the rain to fall. We could add in a little bit more randomization. We could add 10 there, 10 there, and you get like a little bit of a spray, just so there's a bit of randomization to them, so some of them aren't falling directly down. But for now, we are just going to leave this 0, 0. So you can mess with those numbers if you decide that you want them to have a slight angle to them. Color over life is where we'd normally change the color of the particles, but we just want them white, or should we change it? So if we go into color over life, distribution, constant curve, and then points, you'll have 2 points, 0 and 1. Now, these look more complicated than the other ones we've been through, but they're not. Well, they are, but the in value here is the time. 0 being when they start, 1 being when they die. The out value is the colour of them. So, say we want them to start off pink. They're pink, yes, but their out value is still white. So if we look down, see how they, well, you're not really going to be able to see them very well because of how far down they're falling. But you can see that they're getting wider as they fall. Woo! Yeah. So we can change this to something a bit with a bit more blue tint to it. We don't want it to be too blue. There we go. That's decent. So a little bit of blueness to them, and then we'll leave the color over life alone. So we have a single point for spawn. We don't want that. So here, inside the particle emitter, if you right click, you'll find location. You want initial location. If we click on this, you'll have the start location. Open this up, you'll have distribution. Open this up, and then you've got two different areas, minimum and maximum, same as all the other ones. Now, what we want to do is we want to create an area that they're going to spawn in. So if we put 5,000 in the X, you can see they're spawning now in this line, which is quite nice, but not what we want, because character walks through and oh, there's no more rain, boo-hoo. So let's add 5,000 to the Y as well. Now, every single particle can gather any coordinate from 5,000, 5,000 in this massive space, which is quite nice. But I don't want them to spawn on the floor. This is going to be the floor level because it's set to Z0. And I'm going to be using Z0 later on, so I'm going to raise these up by 5,000. So the emitter is still technically on the floor, but they're spawning at 5,000, which is what I wanted. Now, in the minimum, in Z, we're going to put no, we're not. We're going to put minus 200. Yeah. So, there we go. Luscious. Actually, if we... Whoops. I want these to be up at the same level, because I don't want them... No, we don't! Yes, that's why, you silly. Wait, we'll leave these default. We want the Z here to be minus 200, because we want to have a slight offset. I'm mixing my numbers up. I have like a little notepad with numbers in. I'm mixing my numbers up. Okay, so we want to have a minus 200 there. So we get like a slight variation into the location they're spawning on the top. So one thing that we're going to do now is we're going to change their size based on how fast they're going. So if we right click and we go to size, we get size by speed. If we open this up and click it, we are going to have a scale of 0 on X and 5 on Y, and a maximum scale of 0.4X and 5Y. Now you'll notice that these are looking a little bit longer now. You see they're not quite so dot. Come on, let's restart the level and restart the sim because there we go. They're not playing ball today. So there we go. You can see that they're getting longer. They're not just dots anymore. They're more liney, which is what we want. But we need to give these some more acceleration because they're all falling at the same rate and they look fake. So right click, acceleration, constant acceleration. Then in here, we don't want to accelerate them via X or Y, but we do want to accelerate them on the Z value, and we're going to put that at minus 900. And now you can see that the longer these fall for, the faster they tend to get. This is going to add a bit of variation to the field of rain, and that's what we want. We need it to look randomized. So if we save this and we drag them into the scene, okay, now you can see them falling. Yay! Need to restart the level. There we are. Alright, so you can see the rain's falling down, but if we select the particle systems, you'll see that they're falling through the floor. Now, we don't want them to fall through the floor, so what we need to do is we'll right click, collision scene depth, and now we have a bounce. So now they're bouncing off the floor. You see them bouncing, doink, doink, doink. Yeah, everybody's having fun. No. Kill. I hate that it says kill, but we need them to be destroyed. So we'll restart the sim and restart the level, and now when they hit the floor, they disappear. Yay! Cool. So, that's our base rain done. So now we're going to add the little splashes on the ground. Right click into this black area, new particle emitter, and now we have a new set of crosshairs here. Now, in the required, change this to rainfall. We're just going to keep the little dots, right click, type data, back to GPU sprites because we want those to be the same. We will refix the bounds. Now then, spawn, we're going to want 500 of these. I'm not going to have as many splashes spawn because I don't want every single raindrop to splash. Lifetime is too long. We want 0.1 because we want them to be very quick. Their initial size is very big. So we're going to set them to a maximum of 8 and a minimum of 6, so we get a small amount of variation. Their initial velocity, we're just going to leave this default because it doesn't need to change. Color of a life can stay the same, but we want to add a location, initial location, and this is why we moved the rain up earlier. We want maximum 5,000 on the X, 5,000 on the Y, and then Z leave at 0. Save, restart sim, restart level. And now you can notice that there are little splashes coming out of the ground. Now, the splashes stay in line with this particle system emitter because wherever this is, it's spawning it relative to that Z plus 5,000 for the rainfall plus 0 for the splash. So you see the splashes are floating. If we place this on the ground, the splashes will spawn on the ground. They're only little blobs, but you can see that they actually work quite effectively, especially when you start adding more details to the scene. So if, see here, I can see my rain and my splashes. If yours doesn't render, then go back into your rainfall and then just restart the level on this button here. The reason being, sometimes it doesn't auto update in your viewport, and just restarting the emitter in the level ensures that it starts the simulation again with the newest set of data. So just to make things look a bit more visible, I'm going to grab my light, I'm just going to turn it off. There we go, and you can see the rain's falling now. You can see the little splashes. And then if you want to add a bit of fog, you can use an exponential height fog, drag that in, and there we go, we've got like a this nice fogginess now. Let's make it a bit more dense. Let's make it a bit darker, because darker's good in the rain. It's all dark and moody. There we go. So there you have it. Quite a simple but effective rain particle system. Using GPU sprites, we've got random little splashes on the ground. Of course, if you wanted to make this a bit heavier rain, you can go back in, you can go to your spawn, and let's say we actually want like way more. Let's just multiply the rain by 10. Now, you know, we are using GPU sprites, but don't go berserk. I mean, sometimes you can go, I mean, look at that, yeah. I mean, that's way too many, but you can see them now a lot better, like they're way more obvious. So we'll go 25,000 maybe. But yeah, so there we have it. Now, some of these are a bit thick, so we can probably go back into here and we can color over life. We'll just go to alpha over life in the color over life, and we'll just, in the out value, if we change these to 0.5, then they should, yeah, there we go. Now you can see that their opacity is halved. They look a bit nicer. Do that. Should show again really quick. doing that was in color over life you have an option alpha over life. Now we can use that because in the material we're using the alpha node here from particle color in the opacity. So by using that I was able to change the opacity in the emitter when I needed it. Same as the color. Still change the color if I want. So just show that. So if you decide you don't want that, decide it's an alien planet and it rains purple. There you go, you can see the purple rain. Purple rain. Right, so I hope that you can find that helpful and you will be able to use that somewhere. If you've found the video helpful, please drop me a like, maybe subscribe. I am going to be doing more of these. And if you have any questions about what I've covered today, then don't hesitate to get in touch. Just leave a comment and I'll try to respond to any questions that anybody might have. So yes, thank you very much for watching my first tutorial. Bye bye.